All right, good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started on the STEM Communications and Advocacy Subcommittee meeting. My name is Eric Meslow, and I guess I chair this. To the left of me is our corporate leader, Mark Lewis. We'll go around and make introductions. Start to my right and go around the circle.
Robert Clark with Intel.
I'm Alice Laviolette with the Oregon State Library.
Hi, welcome. Nice to have you here, and thank you for the space.
Well, I'm here to kind of hear what you're doing and see if you need any help or research support.
Excellent.
Well, that's very
Fantastic.
Done.
Don Jones, retired CTE teacher and accountant.
Sydney Shepard with the Portland Metro STEM Partnership.
Joe Oshiro with the Oregon Department of Education.
And nobody on the phone at this time? Nobody on the phone at this time.
Haven't heard it yet.
All right. Pretty straightforward agenda today. We're going to talk a little bit about Oregon possibility of an Oregon STEM Day. You have some details associated with that, I'm hoping.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
And then some legislative updates. We can kind of go through the myriad of bills that are moving through. I do have some questions from the OEIB standpoint and how they're still positioning now that we have a change of executive leadership. And then we need to continue to talk about what work we need to do in support of those bills. And I also want to get an update, kind of 4.5, on where we are with our strategic mission messaging piece for the communications side of the committee. So again, for people that are new to this, there's kind of two chunks to what we talk about: communications, how we're going to promote STEM and move STEM forward within the state of Oregon, and then the advocacy piece and how we're going to actually get money and other things moved through the legislative session. So with that, let's go ahead and hit the second item, Oregon STEM Day.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I'm going to let Sydney here, who has been leading the charge, give the committee a background on that. Absolutely. And the conversation that we've been having with the regional STEM hubs around that. And then I will provide some updates in terms of other support for that day.
Great.
Awesome.
Okay. I'm just going to let you see the notes from our last committee meeting, just so that you kind of have, you don't have to read through them right now, but you'll have them, you'll see. I'll use them as talking points. Months ago, we were contacted by a gentleman named Michael. I believe his last name is Roberts. He is with the TAG Ed, Technology Association of Georgia. They began doing Georgia STEM Day, and we're really excited about it. Somehow he got in touch with Skip, who passed him on, who passed him to Bill, who passed him to me.
Perfect.
So, and
You know what they say rolls downhill.
STEM.
But he was really exciting to talk to, and he and I hit a lot of good energy together, and I said, yeah, let's do it. And so then Bill laughed at me, like, have fun with that. No, not in a really bad way, but like, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. So since then, I've been trying to talk some more about STEM Day,
Okay.
and what we finally decided in talking to Thompson Morrison was that rather than the TAO really supporting it and taking the run with it, even with the 6 hubs, that we would use it as an opportunity to bring the 6 hubs together and have some shared ownership so that the PMSP wouldn't own it. No, one hub would own it, and we would all come together. But with that, because I was able to talk Bill into it about having it as part of my job this year, that I would just take the leadership on it. Because all the hubs, as I began talking to them, some of them have like 0.5, FTE. And so we began having hub meetings, and I have varying levels of participation. On the very first call, where I just said, hey, hubs, could we own this together? Could we step forward and do this? We had all 6 funded hubs represented. We also had 2 unfunded hubs represented. We had East Metro, STEAM Partnership, and then we had the group coming out of U of O, so with Brian Rebar. I think it's STEM Core, STEMX Core maybe. And everyone on the call seemed interested and excited. Since then, we've had varying levels of people actually coming to the meetings, but what I've just decided is that if we're going to roll this out by May, we can't wait to continue to have all of the people on the call. So we just keep making decisions, and I keep sending out the emails and letting people know if you have questions, please contact me. I do feel that I need to reach out to some of the unfunded hubs personally and make sure that they really know that they're invited and would like their voice at the table. But that's a bit of a different issue. So here's what we have down so far that the group is comfortable with. The group is comfortable with owning this as a collective kind of community asset between the hubs and pushing it out to whatever degree that they can. And we've begun talking about the fact that it doesn't have to be huge. It's a pilot. It's a trial. We'd rather have it small and successful than huge and massively unsuccessful. And so I think that the hubs are trying to wrap their mind around that. We've decided to have it hosted for a week rather than Georgia's STEM Day. In rural Oregon, they don't meet on Fridays, so they would rather not have it STEM Day on a Friday. We would rather not have it STEM Day on a Thursday. That's kind of odd.
Or Mother's Day, or, sorry.
Just those two. And, it overlaps Mother's Day, doesn't it? I think so too, on May 10th. Well, if a mom loves STEM, go take her to the STEM.
Get her a STEM or something.
But it is, so we decided to do the entire week. We also have some of our outside community activities that want to be involved and already had some weekend things planned. And so they've said, well, how do we play with you guys if we already have something on May 2nd planned or the week after? So we spanned it between May 2nd to May 10th. Knowing that if anything falls outside and they really want to be represented, that's fine. We want to represent. We came up with kind of the tagline, inspiring the future. And we're looking at then working with South Metro Salem STEM Partnership.
How does that coincide with the Georgia Day then? I mean, so do they have a
Yeah.
different slogan, or is?
They have no slogan attached strongly to it. It's just Georgia STEM Day.
Okay.
They do choose one day, but 3 years ago when they began the process, they had the governor make a proclamation that May 9th is their official STEM Day, and then they choose the closest Friday to whatever May 9th is, and they go with that day to promote. So we figured that we would hinge around May 9th, if Mark might talk more about that. If we were able to have the state join Georgia and recognize May 9th, that we would still work the week around May 9th. We also discussed that Melissa Dubois has continually wanted STEMoregon.org as a hub website. They've branded it for themselves right now and used that as a placeholder for them, but they are rebranding the site. They're wanting to put all the hubs on it and have it as the landing page for STEM Week Oregon so that some groups can come on and sign up. This is basically all Georgia does and what we're looking at. They have a page, you come onto the page, you land on the page, it says, yay, participate in STEM awareness, it's great. If you're a school, here's how you can participate. If you're an industry, here's how you can participate. If you're a community activity, they have this bullet. They send out posters that say this to different places, but then once you click to register, yes, I'm going to participate, they limit it just to schools. We would like to open it up to community groups and families.
And libraries.
Yeah.
And libraries across the state, awesome. I know you're already involved with some work with OMSI as well, which is great. In fact, maybe we should coordinate with OMSI on that too to push things out.
Yes, OMSI's on our list of definitely wanting to kind of pull in and see how they can support the state, not just the PMSP. So you give a name and a name and some contact information, the name of your school, are you a district or a school, how many adults will participate, how many students will participate, who is the main contact person, and then there's a box that says this is what we're going to do for STEM Day.
Okay.
That is all they collect. And out of that, they have now moved from approximately 50,000 students their first year, and last year, the end of their third year, 625,000 students
Wow.
that they can document have participated in some level of a STEM activity.
Very cool.
They are now beginning to have more and more state legislature that wants to go out to schools, superintendents going to schools, CEOs of companies heading out. So it's a media awareness. They use it as, they do feed, foster, excel. Feed are just low touch activities. It is definitely a feed activity for them. We feel that for us, because we have hubs in each region, it could be a higher level rather than a low-level smattering. We could really help make partnerships between schools and industry partners, as well as bring awareness and media to the event of STEM. I don't know if there's much more for me to tell you in the beginning part. As hubs, we're starting to talk about how to set goals. On the second page, the bullets are how do we set goals for our hubs, and then how do we set strategies for meeting that goal. We did talk about the fact that we should be really excited but realistic. We want a positive event. We want to be able to make our goals the first year and know how we did that. So I guess coming up here, some of the things that we wanted to talk, this is what I asked Thompson Morrison about. So I guess this is what I would put also before you, is that we really feel like we need a networked statewide voice of support for it, and it has to be louder even in the hubs, because some areas don't even know that they have a hub and what their hub is, and the hubs can use this, but we would love if we had a unified voice. And along with that, maybe a voice and access to some political support. I did have Susan Bonamici's office get in touch with me and ask if she could sponsor an event and then go to it, so that's exciting. We are hoping that we will have some of our larger companies or any of our companies that would agree to do something statewide, not just in the region that they sit in. Because honestly, between South Metro and PMSP, we're company rich, we're industry rich. We could really produce something nice, and then you end up in the rural countries that are really, or counties that are really nervous about doing this and nervous about having some activities. So we would love it if we had some full engagement across the state. And then finally, this stems from talking. None of us have a marketing department. None of us have pushed out a statewide campaign before on how do you do a very quick turnaround campaign statewide. And none of us have marketing support to really brand out the logo, get some stuff going in. So that is a big area of weakness that we are all hoping to get some support on.
But there are funds for the logo development through SMS, yes?
Yes, we are working. So Melissa is working on a logo development. We talked to Melissa for a while, and the hub agreed that it would be really nice to kind of stick with the idea that Georgia does, the outline of a state. And if we branded the STEMOregon.org website with some kind of a state and information in it, that we could take kind of that same, maybe change the color and add events on top of it so it could become a template. So we thought about, branding it, and they're going to use Blue Couch Media, and they already had the money set aside, so they're not upset about adding this into the bigger branding picture.
Well, very exciting. I guess I have a couple thoughts on this. First of all, the concept of doing a STEM week, STEM day, whatever it ends up being across the state of Oregon that's repeatable every year is wonderful. And yes, it's a big challenge to try to pull that off here in the next 2 months. But I think, again, it's possible. Since it's the first time you're doing it in the state of Oregon, I think obviously a launch of some sort at the state level is important. And I think you're correct in identifying getting a minimum of governor's proclamation in regards to it being STEM Day. Very similar to CTE has done the same thing already this year. I think theirs was in February. Career Technical Education. The real opportunity actually kills two birds with one stone here. I think it's number one is to get the launch here in Salem with support from the governor's office, support from Nancy's office, support from the legislature. And also, we happen to be, May will be the perfect time to bring our issues up in legislative committees across the spectrum. So one of the things Joe's very familiar with was at OPAS was the having a STEM day, OPAS day, ETIC day, whatever you wanted to call it, engineering day here in the Capitol. We used to do them every session. Bringing both middle school, high school, and the university programs into the rotunda and have them show their robots, racing cars. What else did we have in there? We had
Tidal Energy.
Tidal Energy, yep. And the idea there was very similar to the CTE day that occurred, is the legislators are invited to come down. They love students. They don't care much about industry. They don't care much about lobbyists, but they love students. And getting students in that hallway is a great opportunity to make a good impact. So what I would encourage us to think about is trying, if we're going to do a STEM week, tie it to a STEM day in the Capitol on a Friday or Wednesday, because that's when the committees that we need to be in front of meet. And get students in the rotunda if possible, showing their stuff, and then get students in front of the 3 committees that are important to us, or 4 committees that are important to us: education, higher ed, workforce, and ways and means, to testify for the myriad of STEM bills and CTE bills that are actually going through right now. So CTE did this in February. They brought the STEM folks in as well, and we ran around the Capitol with CTE and STEM buttons on. It wasn't just one of us or all of us. It was CTE centric when it came to the conversations, for the most part, in front of the legislators, with STEM folks supporting their conversation, but it was centric. This is a good time to maybe turn the tables a little bit, talk about the STEM mission, specifically the STEM hubs, the STEM grants, the STEM higher ed piece, with CTE in the room patting us on the back and saying we're all in this together. And May will be getting to the time where things start to get pretty serious about decision making in regards to money.
Yep.
So it would be a perfect time. I think we have friends in the chair positions in at least 3 of those, or 4 of the, maybe all 4 of those committees. So I think we can get 15 or 20 minutes minimum to bring some kids in. Again, I think you bring one industry person in and they introduce everybody and then shut up and put the kids out there and let them talk about their program. So this is getting great folks from Hood River's programs, from Don, from your old neck of the woods, from around the state is the trick here, right? And brand it with the STEM CTE button. Obviously, Kyle, you have anything to add to this? I mean, you were kind of in the heart of that whole thing for February.
I think it sets a great platform to, do this now as a follow-up.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why that really focused last time is there's the CTE revitalization grant program. So they were there to sort of report back on the results of that program and show kids. So that's why initially that was organized as a CTE day, as opposed to trying to do something which makes sense to me, where we would all be in the building together to show, look at all of these CTE STEM kind of kids.
Yeah.
But I think there's the opportunity to do that and
And
to
we're gonna
raise
have-
awareness
yep.
of the STEM bills, that we may have some
Yeah.
clarity by then, which ones are going to really.
Well, we'll talk about that here shortly on
Right.
how things are going to be actually broken up legislatively. But the fact is that we need to have, we need to testify. We need kids, middle school and high school kids, and even younger, middle school, high school kids, to testify to the STEM hubs. I mean, we need those folks in there talking about the impacts. You need the Jill Hubbards of the world to go up there and passionately pound her fist and say, this is important.
Right.
And I think we can get
They
those
had a
here.
natural draw to get all those
Yep.
CTE kids from around the state because their programs are all funded by legislation. So that, I don't know if we have that exact same draw to get all of these.
32, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
can tie
House
into
Bill
that.
32,
Perfect.
the World of Work, which was all the
Yep.
STEM hubs. And
Okay.
so it's a way of reporting out.
Yes.
I would assume,
And
Joe,
that's
you
not
can
the
go back in
only
the Wayback
reason we
Machine
would
and
come,
pick out some
But it can
good
be a
people
good hook. to
or
get
programs that were still floating around.
Yeah.
There are programs that are still floating around, and some of them are pretty new.
Yeah.
Could use some of those.
And it crosses, obviously, the CTE line crosses very quickly. So again, the larger robots, Lego robotics. I mean, the usual suspects are out there to bring in. It's the next, I think you could have a day then, right? And everybody walks around, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate can go up there and rap a gavel and read it in as STEM Day up front. And I mean, it's all, a lot of it's for show, but at least you're going through the process.
Conversation starters.
Yes,
It's not
the
for
stuff
sure.
outside, out in the state, go for it. I can't be involved with that. That's too much. It's too big for my britches. I think it's a great idea, but I
I
think
have a
that
brainstorm idea,
Yeah.
can I?
fire
I
away.
don't know if this was the right forum to brainstorm,
Yeah,
but and I
absolutely.
can also follow up and say, because I've been working with Jill as well, trying to get her in front of Intel and other businesses out in Hillsborough
Oregon Connections.
with the Oregon connections, and so it might be a great opportunity too, because, as Eric just said, nobody wants to hear from business industry down here, which is true, but everybody wants a piece of business and industry throughout the state. And if there's some way we can use that Oregon Connects and challenge all businesses and industries throughout the state to
Get involved.
adopt a kid for a day, a
Mhm.
STEM CTE kid, and even if it's just for an hour, even if it's over Skype, even if it's for something, it's a connection. And I just think it would be an awesome challenge to really draw people from business and industry. And I mean, we sit at Intel and we send out, please volunteer, and it's
Right.
the same 123 people that volunteer. But if we have the right leaders within the business and industries throughout the state supporting this and challenging their employees to, I'm gonna adopt a kid for a day, and we should be able to cover most every kid in the state of Oregon.
Let's adopt a class,
Yeah.
so that we
Yeah.
can, I think the
Yeah.
educator, adopt an educator is
Yeah.
an important connection as
Yeah.
well.
I mean, I'd just like to see something like that, because I think that then that is the awareness,
But I can't stress, we have a heavy lift. I mean, I haven't polled anybody lately on the STEM portions of the bill or see where they are right now, but my understanding is there's well over $100 million worth of asks right now for STEM and CT related programs. They have $60 million allocated in the co-chair's budget. We have the kicker.
Including early learning.
Yeah, we have the kicker facing
Which the
to,
total cost is 400,
yep, what's
that's what
that?
I heard yesterday.
400?
For
So-
strategic initiatives, including early learning and
Yeah,
all-day
so-
kindergarten.
And everything else.
Yeah, so long story short, we need to market ourselves if we're gonna get anything, so, long story, I think it's a great opportunity. So do we have a solid date? Because that's all it really matters, is putting a pin in the sand right now and saying we're all working towards that, because then I think things can get pulled
sounds like it's
together.
the 6th or the 8th, would be the.
Yeah.
Well, we said the Saturday the 9th.
Saturday the 9th is our
STEM
official,
day.
what we would ask for the official day. Georgia is working with a couple other states, and so it would be a nice
Absolutely. Keep it
ball
all
to
together,
start
yeah.
rolling where we have states continue to take the
Maybe
9th.
down here, right? Or Wednesday or
But
Friday.
it would be this.
Wednesday and Friday,
So it's gonna be the 6th or the 8th.
the person who's going to give us the biggest, there's two people that we can probably lean on to get the biggest audience, and that's Senator Dembrow, who's in charge of workforce. Will probably give us an audience if we ask for it. And then Representative Reed, who's the chair of higher ed, will also probably give us our due diligence. We can also talk to Betty Comp, who's on education, to get us in there, but she's not I don't think she's a co-chair or a vice chair right now. So those are the three that we need to hit. One Senate.
ed?
Higher ed is Representative Reed.
What about
Yeah.
Devlin for Ways and Means?
Ways and Means, I don't know if they're going to want to listen to us yet, but we can ask. And Buckley would do it quicker probably than Devlin.
So
You
we
mean
can just
Ways
base
and
that
Means
as
Ed?
our.
Mark, were you
Pardon?
talking about Ways and Means Ed?
Or
the
Ways and
full-
Means joint.
Joint. I
At
think
that
we
point, you're probably, yeah,
You think
joint.
so?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're late enough that we want it.
Some of this will clarify when we try to get some updates on what you guys are doing internally in regards to pushing through your budgets. So I think it's a great opportunity. Brian was the lead on the CTE side, is that right?
Mhm.
Brian Krieg?
Mhm.
So obviously, as we get closer to this, we want to bring him
Mhm.
into this to coordinate, because I think you do want CTE as the co-pilot on this, just because of everything that we're trying to do to push both through.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so. A couple of things.
Yeah.
So are we, it sounds to me, just a synopsis, that we're looking at, we agree with the support for statewide activities in regions across the state that whole week of May 4th through 9th. STEM Day on the 9th for an official statewide STEM Day, but the STEM Day at the Capitol would be
Announcing it.
either the 6th or the 8th,
I'd go the 8th.
right?
Wednesday or Friday, based on availability of
Yeah,
the people
people.
you want to get in front of.
Yeah.
Right, based on availability. This cannot, I mean, we just mentioned that, highlighting the 3232 grants. From an agency perspective, we cannot be driving any sort of capital, any sort of activity at the Capitol. The CTE was driven outside of ODE. They were only there as a support mechanism, so we would need a similar drive here on that. So just as partly a legislative update, but also here, Lindsay Capps, who was the Chief of Staff for Nancy Golden, has moved over to be the Education Policy Advisor for Governor Brown. And he and I had a conversation this morning in which he assured me that Governor Brown was extremely supportive of the CTE and STEM push, that she's heard that loud and clear. And in addition to early learning and college access, this would make up one of her primary pillars of support. So I think that we will be hearing more on that in the coming days. So that said, is that I think there's a really high probability of the governor being very visible on this one.
Do you want to make the introductions of Lindsay, get people together so we can get on the governor's radar to do a proclamation?
Yeah, I've already given him the dates.
Okay.
And
Is that
have Capps, Lindsay Capps, and have given him the dates of that. I will give him there were several things in that email, so I will do a synopsis just on this to him about what we've decided out of this committee.
Do you know the protocols? Governor makes a proclamation, blah, 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 it's the day, and then do you then work with the Senate President and the Speaker of the House for their proclamations in each body of the legislature? I would assume you have to work on both sides equally. So that would be the next thing, is to get in touch with Peter Courtney and Tina Kotek in regards to letting them know that this was going to be happening on this day. The governor would make such and such proclamation from her office. Wouldn't it be grand if they would read it in as well on the floor? That is your photo op of photo ops. That's where you want your students standing up at the gavel, watching it get all read in, and then
Preferably the aluminum foil hat.
there you go.
That would be awesome to draw the lightning.
So that would be another thing to ask. Again, I think Lindsay would be in a great position to make the phone calls or drop the emails to Courtney and Kotek's office to at least grease the skids on that.
Yeah, I don't think you'd have a problem with that.
And if that hits any turbulence, that's when we can work through Comp and Reed and a few others to.
Yes. I think that Representative Bonamici, I think that the other federal, Merkley would certainly be
Schrader would do it too.
Yep.
Yep.
So I think getting our federal support on this would be also really important, also to raise our visibility of Oregon at a federal level of what we're doing here. It would be wonderful to have the STEM CTE Employer Coalition, obviously working alongside this effort. Would be fantastic given bandwidth and interest. I love the idea of working through some of our other networks like the library system in Oregon to reach all communities. And getting people registered, if they've got ideas, and the maker spaces, and it enables the libraries who are already doing that to tie in and elevate your visibility alongside these, the STEM hubs, just to let people be very aware that this is a collective responsibility that we're taking here. So that excites me a great deal. Being able to, I heard loud and clear from Sydney, the need for media kits and marketing materials. So the STEM hubs can certainly put together ideas for what they can do. What can a school do? What can a business do? And maybe need some help from us, from the business and industry side of things. But South Metro has such great industry partnerships as well, and if you can get them to give you some suggestions as well. But the media kits and marketing materials is something that we should perhaps talk a little bit about as a communications thing. I've been trying to buy myself some time to work on a STEM one-pager for the STEM hub strategy. I think at a minimum we need, well, I think we need a why STEM, why now? I know, Aubrey, we need that, still, and I think that we've
You gotta
done
have
some
the
work.
appropriate materials
Balance.
to drop down on people's desks.
Because people still are doing that, but also for media kits for out in the field. So things that speak to educators, that speak to the broader community who don't have the exposure in the metro area to all of the conversations that have been happening around STEM, making sure that we're marketing in a way that, agriculture in particular, natural resources, that they're seeing STEM in that broader STEM CTE connection.
Yep. I think that is wonderful. Do you have any additional questions or asks from us?
Can I just add one more thing, because on that note, sorry, on the Oregon Connect thing, or what's it called, STEM?
Oregon
Connection.
Connections.
Connections. Like, if there is any way we can all start using the same thing,
Yeah.
that brand just gets that much stronger. And, it doesn't have to change every 6 months. It can, if we can get in front of everything that's happening and keep it
Tight.
Do
So
we-
I know
Branded
that
like
talking to Jill and Melissa, that it will not
sorry, I
be,
go through the weeds, but.
it will not be ready for May. There's a lot of concern of trying to roll something like that out by May. They're hoping, like this STEMposium, we're going to use as an opportunity to get more industry partners into it. She wants to come out to Intel. So they're hoping that it'll be ready to go by fall of 2015 for teachers to get into. But from the conversation with all the STEM hubs seemed very excited about having a shared resource and a shared tool that everyone could be pushing their industry and nonprofit and partners to, so that teachers could get matched. It seemed to be a positive push on the call.
So it seems to me that we could do something that's an interim solution here. EPIC has been going around to each of the funded STEM hubs to be making a profile
Right.
of their work. And so being able to have a page for each of the hubs with a little profile at the very least, and then being able to enter what are you doing for STEM Day, and having some resources, a media kit and some ideas, that seems pretty doable, because we're not talking, rolling out the Oregon Connects
Right.
platform as a whole, but we could certainly do this
Have
piece.
that. And then we had agreed to have a toolkit on the STEM Week Oregon page. Jerry Ann from Portland Metro STEM Partnership, Karen representing East Metro STEAM Partnership, Kendall from I think Central Oregon. The three of them wanted to work together and to put together a toolkit. Like, if I don't know what to do, here are options. No matter where you are in the state, here are activities, here are this. Connect to some other organizations to have that. Here's some webinars that are going on that you can have your kids log into, like, see what it's like. I have a contact at LinkedIn, even in California, and they said, we would love to provide, like, what does it look like to be a UI UX designer? And we'd host like a webinar and have Oregon seniors and juniors come and ask us questions. So we wanted to have a page where we put all that together in kind of a big toolkit for this year.
Can I?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry.
No.
One of the things, so great, and I know that that's going to happen, and we can set realistic.
Love that confidence.
And we can set realistic expectations of that, of what's boots on the ground, things like that.
Great.
I think what's really critical here, as we, continue to increase our visibility and advocacy, I'm wondering, where are we going to get the marketing expertise? Is there a company or companies or somebody who can, whether it's OIT or Intel or somebody who has a department who can comp us some time to help develop an Oregon STEM logo that maybe complements the CTE STEM logo of the dots, and help us develop, 2 one-pagers on the Y STEM, similar to what Business Oregon, so what OBC has been putting forward in your materials, but condensed down to a tighter look and feel.
I'm trying to see if I wrote down the name here. Thompson had a group that he was asking and wasn't getting back. I don't know where he is on that. It was like a
Agency.
Or even Pacific Northwest College of Design,
Opus
right?
Creative Group, by chance? Does that sound
No,
right?
that does not sound right. But
Why don't we just go to White and Kennedy?
There you go.
Well, Wyden and Kennedy, or what's the one with Z?
CMD?
No,
Zebo,
Zebo.
yeah,
Zebo.
I'd go Wyden.
Yeah, well, if we can get Wyden, if we've got a
Wagner.
connection, that would be
I think
phenomenal.
Whiten is the name who he.
Wagner Edstrom? Or
Yeah,
Edelman?
I think it's Wagner.
Yeah, I think
Wagner
that is who he said that he was the initial ask.
Wyden and Kennedy.
I don't.
We're talking the other Wyden, the Wyden
What's
of
that?
Nike Wyden, Wyden and Kennedy.
That is the,
Oh, no.
that's
I
Opus.
don't
Wag-
I know.
think Thompson said Wyman Kennedy.
No.
Thompson said no?
No, I do not think
Oh.
Thompson said
He said a
Wyman
different
Kennedy,
one.
but Wagner Edstrom sounds more.
So Wagner Edstrom's a full-featured PR firm. They don't.
Yes, that's who it is then.
So they don't do the digital marketing portion of things, but
Okay.
they certainly have a tremendous number of partners that can do that work. But they do the writing. They do excellent positioning and writing papers. So they're strategic. The hard part with them is to garner time with them. I can tell you from previous experiences, either at TAO, Tech America, PNDC, the Defense Coalition. Wagner and Edelman, which is the other large PR firm here in town, will comp $20,000 worth of time, $30,000 worth of time pretty easily, but they bill it $400 an hour. So
Well, that's why you put the kids out there making that.
exactly. So it may sound like you're getting a ton, but it'll go like that. So the other thing I would encourage us to do is gather everything that we've done over the years to this point and look at what can maybe just be modified or refreshed or consolidated on,
I
as
think
opposed to
we probably
reinventing the
have
world.
most of the content.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
We've
think
we've written the content.
the content,
Hundreds
yep,
of
we've got the
times.
content.
And I think probably what we need is somebody to do the graphic design
Mhm.
of all of it.
Yeah.
McClenahan Brewer is a member of the CTE STEM Employer Coalition. They joined to support that, so Carrie McClenahan, I think she does a lot of work for
Yeah,
TAO,
lots.
doesn't she?
She's on the board too.
And TAO recently did a little support, I don't think I have that with me, but it had a picture of a student and support for STEM and CTE. Has anybody seen that piece? It's sort of blue and orange, and so I assume maybe she did that. And it was taking the same stuff,
Yep.
but just putting a picture of a kid and some bright colors, and it looked
Yep.
like a handout. So that might be one place.
I'd like
we could
something
go.
edgy and fresh.
Well, it's funny, there's actually national STEM logos as well that you'll see
We can build off
uniformly
of.
used from state to state, where they just simply lay the state name, on
Yeah.
top of one of about 9,000 logos that are out there.
Yeah,
I think there is some work that could be done
Come
around messages, just distilling them.
Distilling
What
the message.
we know will be the most critical, and just
the other option that we
sharing it around
have,
so that we're all saying the same thing over and over.
another,
And having some of them so that the collateral that we produce could be handed, it would not be the exact same that if our TOSAs or if school leadership went and handed it to a teacher, like how do I get involved in my classroom? It doesn't look like the same piece that you hand to, hey, would you,
Yeah.
take this back and talk to your industry partners? So that we have a couple pieces, because it's always bad when we put everything on one page
Yeah,
and
I'm-
try and use it for everyone.
honestly, I'm less concerned about marketing to teachers right now than I am to market to business, industry, legislators, and community influencers, and that, I think, has to be edgier, and things that speak to parents as well. So yes. One other option here is that PNCA is very interested in being a part of the STEAM conversations. So the College of the Arts, and we could also turn students loose on edgy designs and do a logo design.
Yeah, you could turn the video kids loose on.
We could turn video
Yes.
kids. I mean, again, what it could be is peer-to-peer. They
Absolutely.
would be edgier, they would get us a logo, they would get us this if we could convince a couple of,
It's the,
Like a quick turnaround.
It's the quick turnaround.
challenge with academia and using their resources is the,
well, I can certainly reach
Self-
out
self-approval.
unless we're gonna go with a firm. If we think we can grab a firm that is willing to comp us time to do logo design, basically, we're talking two things, logo design and 2 one-pagers,
Do
basically.
we not have logo design covered from SMS?
No, no. We need a professional logo design that's really high level
The logo
And
for
edgy
the
and
STEM
fresh.
week,
and fresh.
is that the logo we're talking about?
Which
for
one?
STEM
STEM
week?
Week Oregon.
or just.
Well, I think we wanna,
I think it should all be under the same umbrella.
I think it should be part of the STEM Investment Council's logo. We
Yeah.
create a logo that exists for Oregon STEM as a whole and get feedback. We get 3 designs, get feedback quickly, and go with it.
So Melissa does have,
Oh,
and we may
when 112 passes.
want to go back and talk to her about it, but they have some money and they are moving with Blue Couch Media.
Okay,
So if we want to talk to her about that and ask her to
Okay.
pull back, we should talk to her
Okay.
about that and ask her to pull back some.
so I can't stress enough, the only way any of this is gonna happen is if there's a center of gravity for this entire effort. So thank you so much for,
Yep.
it sounds like you're holding your hand up in the
Yep.
air on this. Because
Amazing,
yes.
riding the wave.
these things don't
Ride
happen
the wave.
unless somebody does stand up and say, I'm the hub, right?
Sure.
So, don't be shy in regards to asking and setting dates, because this is gonna come very, very quickly.
Who do I contact specifically about media? Because that is the one big, if we don't get the word out quickly, then it doesn't happen, and that's the hugest gap that we have.
I would talk to Skip at TAO immediately.
We'd love to coordinate with the OEIB Communications Director
Yeah.
on that, for sure, to at least have her in the loop on this.
That's Kristen Gimbel?
Kristen Gimbel.
Yeah, and I think the TAO can be very helpful in the sense that they have a number of media companies as members that would probably be able to
Yep.
get pushed.
Yep.
This is a critical item for the TAO to move forward, and therefore I think they should be able to find somebody that'll probably help you out.
And that will work more than Thompson's efforts have been. Talking to Skip may help.
Oh, you gotta talk to Skip, don't talk to Thompson. Don't talk to me, talk to Skip, Skip's in charge, he's president of the TAO.
Okay.
That's right.
Don't work for me.
Bypass.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what you
and-
do is you say, Eric said to come talk to you, or Thompson said to come talk to you, and just go.
Yeah.
And be bold, ask for
Okay.
something very specific. I need 20 hours, I need 5 hours, I need,
Don't ask for hours, ask for products.
yeah, there you go.
Ask for tangible outputs.
And,
Okay.
You don't need to be making the decision how
Yep.
much time that takes.
and be as specific as possible with the ask. If you just say, I need help with coming up with branding, people will freak out, right? But if you say, all I need is this logo, and we already have 4 or 5 concepts that we're thinking about, we just need them professionally polished up, right? Something like that.
Okay.
So is that the primary venue for that, and we're not going to PNCA or?
Do you think the state's gonna
McLennan?
do it fast enough? Would the state be able to?
The state can't do anything
anything.
STEM week.
Oh, STEM week.
for
So,
STEM week.
Yeah, I would.
Seems like a different challenge.
Yeah, maybe
In
we
my
don't
humble
elevate
opinion,
that, we,
From like STEM Inc.
Yeah.
across the state.
STEM.
That's a really
Okay.
big strategic.
Let's just do
sort of
STEM.
effort.
And
Not
that
business
also, like I
strategic,
said,
but
is
sort of
liable to be
tactical
up,
at this point.
subject to
We need to
significant.
get
It's a
some
debt.
time to get it
Or
out.
a week.
If
Yeah,
Deborah
that's right.
moves bills through and everything else, right? Because
Possibly.
Randy might get
Yeah.
pulled together in multiple different
Yeah.
manners. So let's talk about legislative updates.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much, and go get them. Love it.
Break around.
All right, so we know that we have 2 bills that dramatically affect what we're involved with. And we have some on the cusp of arriving that we need to be aware of and make sure that we're aligned with and can support. And then we have a huge question mark in regards to how the OEIB is prosecuting their budget asks. And that's gonna probably be the homework for you if you don't know the questions or the answers. So we have 2 bills that I'm aware of that are moving through. We have Senate Bill 112, which is a dramatic bill from Senator Dembro that would merge the STEM Investment Council with CTE and it become the STEM CTE or CTE and STEM Investment Council, making this council dual missioned. Update. Last, we were here in February, it kicked off, everybody was singing Kumbaya. They threw it at you and a couple other people to have conversations. Have you been able to make any progress on clarifying where we're going with this, or has it been pretty quiet since February?
It's been fairly quiet. Lindsay and I met with Senator Dembro to discuss the bill a little bit further. He, very positive conversation. It was put back on myself and Laura Roach to poke holes in that legislation and to come back to see, well, what do we want to see changed? And we haven't had a chance to sit down quite yet to hammer out details around that. So that's where that stands.
There are 19 business days until all bills have to be out of committee. So this thing dies if it doesn't get read in, because it hasn't been fully read in. It has to be fully read in, amendments have to be proposed, and there has to be a work session on it. So there's 2 or 3 meetings minimum within the Senate Workforce Committee on 112 to get it out of committee and to Ways and Means. And we got 19 days to do it. So again, things are going to come rapidly to a head here. And there's probably only 4 meetings or 5 meetings probably that we could probably get into to testify associated with that. Do you need any assistance or push?
Pushes are fine. It's a matter of actually finding time in the schedule to sit with Laura and to be able to think strategically about it. So I think that I will be able to meet with her next week.
So there's nothing you need from this council or from advocacy in the Senate?
If people have feedback on the bill, I think that the entire STEM council, I would like feedback on Senate Bill 112 and to think through what are the implications. I think the primary concerns, both from a STEM perspective and a CTE perspective, is how do we not lose momentum in terms of getting investments out the door while we mess around with the governing structures of it. So I think that is the primary concern, and I think that the suggestion has been to create some subcommittees that deal with these separately. The overall integration, given the tremendous history and the federal connections, the federal implications of CTE, that I know we can all say kumbaya over this, but there's some real serious integration challenges that we're going to be facing, and we're going to need at least this biennium to sort through it. Not only connecting regional CTE coordinators with the STEM hubs and finding that capacity, aligning those with community college programs, aligning that with regional centers. There's a tremendous amount of work that is very strategic in nature and also just very boots on the ground. That's not the way we push funding out kind of things. So
my understanding is there's no language in Senate Bill 112 right now.
There's no language?
There's no language in the bill. The bill that was introduced was just a placeholder bill. It was the gut stuff, wasn't it? The one that, when we talked, when there was no real...
The one I saw, maybe it didn't come off of OLS,
Maybe.
but the one I saw had extensive,
Yeah.
it had extensive
Was it pretty
content, yeah.
extensive? About merging both?
Yeah, it's very
Was it about
specific.
merging, or was it just about CTE?
It was just about
merging,
CTE.
It was just about CTE.
Yeah.
Just
And
about
it
CTE.
did
That's
pull
what-
in the STEM Investment Council as working together, but not, it wasn't
Right.
Yeah.
merged.
So that I don't think we can react as a council until there's proposed language for something around a merger, because I think we're in support of them creating a CPE investment council. Sure, go for it, right? I think it's a lovely idea, but I think the bigger concern and fight was putting them together,
Yeah.
right? And yeah.
Yep,
So if you have, again, that's you and Ms. Roche.
yep.
If Laura, if you guys have any proposed, I'd love to see the language and have a better understanding of things.
Well, are you gonna send a nudge out to the entire investment council, STEM investment council, to get some feedback to help you?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
And I know that
The entire,
steering
all four
committee
of
of
us?
the Employer Coalition, which includes a lot of people who are building on all
That would
these
be really
issues,
great.
they'd be a good group to look at.
Oh, no, absolutely, and I think that's what I think that's where it was left off. So where it was left off was, yeah, they threw it on, threw it on you guys' shoulders, and now it's just sitting, and with an action will be action here very shortly, and not being able to get it through.
Because he's not hearing anything.
And maybe
I don't know
that's-
what he's looking for.
Maybe it's too early this
I'll
session,
forward this to you.
but it seems like it's languishing a little bit. House Bill 2728, which creates the Oregon Talent Council. Just to give you guys an idea, the Oregon Talent Council concept has disconnected from this group significantly in the sense that it is going to be housed in the Oregon Employment Department, not within the OEIB. So Mark's oversight would be disconnected. And it also is going beyond STEM significantly and outside the STEM boundaries. It certainly has STEM in its core, but it's not being marketed in any fit, form, or function as a STEM play anymore. It's being set up as a employment talent gap filler within higher education play. Now, the priorities of the council early are all STEM related or CTE related, frankly, but it's not going to bind itself that narrowly in its scope or in the language of the bill. So I think we can, as a council, probably say whether or not we support it or not, but we have no responsibilities as a council to drive that bus. I think that bus is being driven well by other interests at this time. You have any concerns or comments about 2728?
No, I think that it serves it's beneficial to the state as a whole to make stronger ties with the efforts being made around STEM and CTE. And so I'm not quite sure that a full disconnect is an advisable move at this time, because people will see it as yet another council, and it will highlight the questions and concerns about establishing yet another council. So, which is what Senate Bill 112 will also face if it continues to go as a separate CTE investment council, will face the same criticism. So there may be a need and desire to ensure that, and I know that there's some language there in terms of aligning with and coordinating with.
STEM Investment Council has representation on the Oregon Talent Council by
Right.
statute. So there's very much a tie into all the different groups. I think the concern is that, and it mostly came from one of the main tenets of the Oregon Talent Council is healthcare. And there's that overarching debate on whether or not healthcare is STEM or not.
There's no debate.
Well,
There is
amongst some.
The only debate is at the national stage, where NSF did not define it as STEM.
Right.
And this level
BLS
raises
did
the
not.
important, pardon?
Bureau of Labor
Yes,
Labor
they didn't
Statistics
either.
also did not.
Right.
Right, and since we're sitting within the employment department, the language has to be minimized. So it will happen. I think
The definition that the Oregon Employment Department has been using for the last 10 years at least for STEM jobs includes healthcare industries, and the STEM Council has made its views on that very clear. The Brookings Institute report, which is being considered by the STEM, the Subcommittee on Data and Metrics to endorse that, very strongly puts forward the healthcare industries as being defined as STEM. So helping to explain to those industry partners that everybody working in STEM and CTE sees them as at the table would be very helpful.
Hello, Dwayne.
Oh my God, that's much better.
Welcome.
I've been watching you guys gesture and point and all that sort of thing for a little while now, and it's quite amusing.
Oh. Hey, brother. All right. Well,
I didn't know that we were on. Seth didn't say that we were actually hooked up from a webinar perspective.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
all right. Well, welcome. I'm glad you can hear better. Again, I don't think we need to make too broad of a point on this, but 2728 is moving forward. Amendments have been proposed. We've circled back through stakeholders. Those amendments are in Legislative Council. We should be in a final work session in the Higher Education Committee next week, or I think they're actually looking at the 23rd, just FYI if you haven't heard. Testimony will occur that day. We hope to see it voted on that day, and we'll be off to Ways and Means, which will just start the fight at a completely different level, or the challenges at a different level. Opportunities. It'll be a fight. I'm a fighter. Anyhow, the challenges will just get different. So, Dawn, maybe you can update. Do you have any update from Representative Comp and some of the issues that she's been working on in regards to supplemental STEM CTE funding?
So Dakota and I met with Legislative Council this morning. They're working on trying to get the bill written and out. It's basically patterned after the CTE revitalization grants, but then it comes in with a broader scope in terms of nonprofits, Oregon colleges, Oregon private colleges. So we're looking at all these potential providers, from ORTOP to SuperQuest to Girls Get It, to that there would be something for those groups.
And do you have an estimated monetary ask that you're looking for?
We're asking for $5 million, and my hope is then that we would get 15 or 20 million of grant requests, but who knows? There's basically lots of pieces in there for lots of people, from when OPAS essentially used to fund all those things in different formats.
Yep.
Some of those are died already, and some of them are still kind of hanging on as orphans, that hopefully they'll be able to.
Which brings in our overarching recommendation to the OEIB. Had 3 components to it. It had the STEM hubs, continuing funding of the STEM hubs. It had a STEM grant section that was targeted more K through 12, correct?
Yeah.
And then it had kind of a higher education piece, workforce careers piece, that OTC is taking a portion of that mission. And then it sounds like to me what Betty is working on, and the audience that you've gotten with her, which is really powerful, by the way, is kind of our could be or in alignment with our middle piece of our ask.
Certainly complimentary.
Very complimentary. The concern would be to ask for both with in bill form might be problematic, because they'll be competed against each other, and the likelihood is if they're both successful, they're both going to get successful at a lower rate. And is there...
Ours is in the agency budget,
Yeah.
not in a bill.
Which brings up the next question. How is the OEIB advocating for the different sections of the agency budget outside of the 2-pager that I saw for STEM and CTE? Are they setting up, are they testifying? How are they positioning the legislative effort to go for the 5 million and the 7 million and the 2.9 million?
Right now that there's conversations ongoing between the OEIB and the governor's office about prioritization of the various strategic investments that were put forward. Right now, STEM is still very much up in the priority list. Along certainly age 3 to grade 3 is a critical piece. Certainly. The transitions, the 11-14 transitions piece is an important part of it, and then the STEM work as well.
So there's no plan on taking any of those 3 pieces, or all 3 or 2, and carving them out into separate legislative action?
Not right now. I haven't heard anything along that. I can certainly have that as homework and check to see whether or not that's of benefit.
Well, what it does is
In
it
its
causes an individual opportunity to testify for something as opposed to it being lumped into the larger conversation. Because right now, obviously, you're going to be talking about a $9-point-some-odd billion budget. Are they going to give anybody any time to talk about STEM hubs in committee? Right. I'd be curious to understand what the legislative, because if there's an actual bill that drops, then we can lobby and arrange things to support it. It's much more difficult if it's just general budget.
It is.
You guys are gonna have to reach out to us to bring us in if you want us to testify or to work. My advice to you is if they don't drop an individual bill, is that you keep charging as hard as you can with your own thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I
and
see them as totally complementary, because when CTE revitalization first came in, it was supposed to be two, it was 1.9 million.
Mhm.
They got, what, 10 or 11 million dollars worth of grant requests, we got some results, and then it built. So we're trying to start the same way that CTE revitalization did.
understand, it's just, I don't, just maybe you guys can explain. I don't see a difference between what you're asking for and what you're asking, or what we asked for in regards to the STEM grants. Maybe you do because you each have your own pet projects that you would hope to see get funded with them. But the fact is, both would be a competitive RFP process that would be open to, I assume, a certain category of grant doors, right?
Are you
Grantees.
talking about an RFP process, or are you talking about direct?
No, it's an RFP process.
Would it go through the STEM Investment Council?
We listed STEM Investment Council as also helping ODE pick who the evaluators would be for the grant recipients when those RFPs are coming in.
So you would have ODE?
Review.
We'd have
They would be
ODE
running
review,
Okay.
just
So
like,
this is kind of like OPAS being recreated.
yes, it's like the mini grants of OPAS, but at a much larger level.
And that's why I'm confused in regards to what we put forward, right? And it
Is
seems
that
like,
part of what you envisioned the STEM Investment Council doing?
I don't know if we envisioned the council necessarily doing we were
I
going
think
to
what
be the
first needs to be
funder.
defined is
Yeah.
what our ask is for the STEM grants. That's what you're calling that bucket, right? STEM grants, what is that? Right? Do we see it as an RFP cycle? Or is it to fund things that bubble up? What is that? I think that's what needs to be cleared up first.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, we have a STEM investment fund that is not funded within our legislation, right? Which is under the Treasury Department, and that holds some great potential for us to swing beyond the biennium funding from funding cycle to funding cycle. If it's in an agency budget, then it gets spent out by June 30th. The mechanisms of the first, the hubs, we're looking at partially an RFP process, but not a full RFP process. So they compete, but they're also, if they're meeting particular readiness criteria, they would receive some backbone support. What we put forward for the use of the middle, and this is contingent upon so many other factors, is the challenge here is so if there's nothing coming through for transforming math education in the state, I mean, we as a council need to have a conversation about how to prioritize these funds. The areas that we put forward was transforming math, engineering and computer science, elevating that and increasing that. Support for, and that was with K-12, predominantly in middle school, but not entirely. Out of school time providers and supporting them similar to the Chick Techs, not all, because there's 4-H and there's outdoor
Right.
school and a whole host of other viable opportunities. The idea here is that it would be more Shark Tank, things that work, we spread through our hub network, things that hold promise, but we're not quite sure that they have enough evidence and efficacy associated with it. We invest, learn something. If they're viable, we expand support for them.
And this is again why it creates more confusion for me, because that sounds exactly like what we did for the last 8 years, right, down at OPAS. I mean,
I don't think so. I think it's a little different. I
It
think
is
there
a
is
little
some crossover, what I just heard you
There's
say.
some crossover,
Knowing
but there's...
that process, because I
Yes,
happily participated in that process, I think it's a little bit different.
it
so
is a little bit different, but we couldn't identify, when Terrell and I sat down and tried to identify who's there for the orphans, we couldn't find it.
Yeah.
So we knew we had to do something. So
Yeah.
we were hoping that there was money, but we couldn't find it to apply for it.
Yeah.
So, you know, if there's a complementary way to work here, I mean, all we want to do is see this thing work.
Yeah.
Well, and the
So-
orphans need to fight for their footing, right? They need to be able to,
And a grant process allows that.
yeah.
Plus, frankly, I did some research. If we have 565,000 or whatever it is students in the state, and in ORTOP alone, I had them pull some numbers, and we helped about 6,000 students. We're probably the biggest organization in ORTOP. That's about 1.06% of the students in the state were involved at some level in a robotics program. Now, I don't think we're ever going to move this needle at 1%. And my question for this committee is, what percentage of the students in the state do you want to have? What level of an experience? Is that a 100-hour experience, like being on a robotics team? I mean, we've got to put some numbers to this thing, or we're never going to get there.
Well, and do you
And
get
then what do
prescriptive,
we
or do you
fund
have
it
a
with?
process that
Yeah.
constantly
Yes.
evaluates what should bubble up to the top?
And I think that this is a great conversation to be had with the entire, STEM council.
So I agree. The issue is that we are about to go into complete mess up the minds of the legislators mode.
Yeah, I don't
Because
wanna
I will
mess-
tell you right
I
now,
agree. I don't want to mess up
this
the
isn't
minds of
gonna
the
fly.
legislature. Yeah, I was not aware that there was that much in the STEM council budget for this same type thing.
well, and it
I'm
depends.
sitting here, why am I beating my brains out on this if somebody's covering
Well,
it?
this wholly depends on, is this such a minor rounding error of a rounding error of a rounding error within the OEIE budget that this just flows on through and nobody ever knows, right? No one ever pays, it never bubbles up to a committee question level.
Uh-huh.
And then you guys have your event and you're able to get it, and kumbaya, we've got $14 million being spent on this darn thing, right?
Mark,
Fantastic.
maybe you almost already said this, but is this ask coming from, are these two asks going to the same people?
Yeah. It's all going to
Ultimately, they will all
Yeah.
go to the same people. Right now, what we've got in the agency budget, which is actually a huge portion of the OEIB. The OEIB's agency budget is not very large. And so the $7.9 million for STEM dwarfs the rest of the budget for OEIB, because OEIB is not an implementation agency. So having us get any dollars for this is an aberration, and has caused DAS some increased scrutiny, but we felt as an agency that this was important enough to preserve it separate from the Department of Education, or in addition to the Department of Education, in order to protect funding for these efforts. Another 7.1 is in the agency budget at the Department of Education. We're coordinating with them, obviously, around the agency budget. I think a fair question is, do we pull it out as a separate legislative ask, as a bill? I think that's an interesting notion, and I'll run that up the flagpole.
For example, the STEM hubs in a separate bill passes. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah,
But going through agency, it may get hammered,
yeah.
right? Because they're very seldom have I seen them actually get down to line items and actually think about it. They just start whacking things unilaterally,
budgets.
right?
Yeah.
And so your $5 million on hubs becomes $3 million, and it just happens. Everything gets knocked out.
Well, if it's one bill as well, we could sweep other things into funding the STEM investment fund, and actually doing it proper.
And
Right?
And Betty is an excellent person to have this conversation with. Have you spoken with her at all?
I've spoken with her, but mostly around your bill.
When we were in
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah.
Well, if you could give her a landscape, she may be able to connect dots in such a way that it would be palatable to the legislators, right?
Yeah.
Because that, again, this doesn't have to make sense to us, it has to make sense to them.
Right.
Um,
Right. No, absolutely.
So I guess I'm very concerned, and I'm very supportive,
Yeah, well,
right?
I'm concerned too, because
Yeah.
I've been asking, where's the money in OEIB that's going to actually get out to the people that are going to, I mean, there has to be money or we can't get the work done.
Yeah, so,
We can't just have meetings forever. We gotta get boots on the
Yeah,
ground,
so-
get those boots on the ground equipped. And
Yes.
that's part of what OPAS did, is it equipped boots on the ground. And I wanna re-equip those people and not lose that little bit of French resistance that's out there.
and that was $1 million a biennium, so it
Yeah.
wasn't a ton of money.
It was
No.
750.
Well, that's just because I
It
cut
was
your
Because
budget.
they took out taxes.
So, so the question, I guess the action item for you is how is OAIB attempting to prosecute their base budget fundamental ask? What can we do as a STEM investment council to support that?
Yeah.
What can we do to clarify the other asks that are coming in from industry and outside forces that seem to have synergy or are in parallel to the ask the STEM investment council has put forward? The hubs, I think, by themselves pass, and you can probably get $5 million for the hubs because I think there's enough there. You bring in Jill and you bring in, Bill,
Yeah.
you bring in, and boom, right?
Well, you can see,
Bring in
you can
students.
see
Yeah.
who they are.
And and more importantly, we haven't finished the job of networking the rest of the state, and
Right.
legislators will understand that and will be willing to do that. The question is that $5 million for just creating new ones, or is the $5 million for creating the new ones and then long-term support of the hub system moving forward? I think that has to be crystal clear, because if you think you're going to start taking money out of the 7 and start supporting the hubs long-term, I think you're looking to get killed, because now you're taking grant money and making it sustaining money, and that will absolutely, trust me, I've played that game, and you don't want to go there. So you want the hubs to be a separate thing, right? That for creation and then long-term funding of them. And that may be enough of an ask and enough of a pitch that that's all we need to focus on. But that, because you're talking about short-term and long-term, may need to be in its own bill, and that's why I'm asking this strategy piece. The grants at the K through 12 level, and I don't know what you're calling the higher ed piece. If we don't have very specific ideas of how that money would either be allocated and the types of programs that it would go to by name, if it goes to the legislature, it'll get killed. If you could hide it in your base budget ask and you just get your money, then great. But if it goes out in front of the legislatures for conversation, you're going to have these are the types of programs.
I think that's the danger of putting forward that middle sort of flexible pot of funds, is that, quite honestly, from a strategic perspective, we need to see where chips fall before we can utilize those truly effectively in the system. People want fully baked ideas, and that's just not where that is right now.
You don't have, go ahead.
Is it enough for the legislature to see exemplars? This is the way
Yes.
the money was used last biennium
Yes.
to make tech geometry
Yeah.
and tech algebra at Benson
Absolutely.
High School?
Absolutely.
Even though this coming time we won't be
You
doing
need to
it?
be able to. You need to be able to have touchstones to make it real, right?
Yeah.
If you think they're going to ever give you money to think about what's best and do, no, that's not their
Why
job.
can't we use the CTE revitalization grant
Exactly.
as a model? That could include the $5 million that's undefined
Yeah.
and the $5 million that you like to use for the orphan programs, and
Very
combine
good.
those. Maybe even in Betty's bill, that would say we want
Yeah,
10
I
million
think-
for the STEM investment funds, or
Yeah.
whatever it's called. And we know that some of it would go towards these programs, other would be, in the same way, I think that CTE revitalization grant program operated that way.
That's what our bill is, the
Right.
thing that we're working on. And as I met with Elsie this morning, I literally showed her in the writing where we literally took the CT revitalization
Towards
bill
them.
and then inserted this new set of desired outcomes.
Yeah.
The
And you could-
language is
Right.
pulled right straight out of the old bill.
And perhaps you could amend it so that we
Well, it's not out
pull the 5 million, amend the asking price or something.
of, okay, well, it's not out of legislative council. I mean, I just want this thing to work for the kids. So, I mean, when I get the draft, I'd be happy to send it out to you guys and let you take a
Well,
look at it and tell me what you think.
how active is-
How do we do this?
How active is Betty in the writing of this, or is she just leaving it to you guys and wanting
She's
to
pretty
display?
much giving it to us guys. Frankly, I wrote a ton of it.
Well, I would highly, she's very, obviously, very strategic.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
involved.
She needs to understand what the STEM investment, she probably doesn't understand what the STEM Investment Council
I
is
didn't
necessarily put forward.
understand what STEM
Right,
investment.
that's-
I'm
that's
still
what
not
I'm
quite
saying.
sure what that piece is exactly doing. So I think we need to get someone who can ultimately answer all the questions in the same room with the young lady and make sure that you guys come out with a plan.
I will say that I hear pretty regularly from the people in the building about, so what are the STEM bills I should be talking about?
Yep.
I'm talking CTE all day long, every day. Everyone knows where we are and what bills we care. What are the STEM bills?
Yep.
And so, and there are these lists of bills, but I think people are still very confused about what the
And
STEM
it's
ask
because
is.
we're coming through agency and not coming
Yes.
through bills. And that's why, again, and the OEIB is the only people, right now, it's your team, your boss, that needs to be able to say from a legislative effort, or it was Danny, be able to say, these are the bills I want. And now Lindsay would be the person to be able to draft from the governor's office a request for a bill and pound it right through, right?
Should it come from the governor's office though?
Oh, I think it's a great place. I mean, it's from us.
As opposed to a legislator?
It's, since it's in alignment with the governor's suggested budget, if the governor is in agreement with that, then it's no big deal, right?
Or will they do that after the co-chairs have a different,
Yeah.
they will?
Yeah.
I just don't know the politics well enough to know how that all works.
Might be a good opportunity for the new governor to take ownership of some of this.
It may be.
Will the governor take ownership?
Well, again, I think you've
Stuff has to
heard.
have a champion or it never flies.
Yeah.
She's very
I don't think we
supportive,
would
whether or
have
not she'll
other
introduce bills at this point, I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
that's the
I mean, she's
question.
still finding her place, but she's very supportive and signaled strong support for the budget and the recommendations that are out there.
So I would encourage us to try to put a HB in front of something, because then we'll at least have it.
But certainly the
defined.
hubs are an easy one. The post-secondary talent development, I mean, again, we have put these places in the governor's recommended budget in order to ensure that the good work went forward. OTC is now picked up and seems to be able to cover that post-secondary talent development. That makes that need to be in an agency budget less
Well,
urgent. I mean,
what it amounts to is where our pitch, for example, and this is, I think, the strategy that you want to be able to do. Here's the House bill that aligns with the governor's recommended
Right.
budget.
Yeah.
So HB 2728 takes care of this portion of the STEM
Yep.
Investment Council's piece.
Right.
HB blah 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 takes care of the STEM hubs and a STEM ranking program. And that calls for $12 million. The piece that I think is going to get real confusing would be if there was any leftover higher education STEM piece that the OTC, since the OTC's now pulled off, you still had like a $2.9 million.
That was an internal allocation
Okay.
to assure that we put more forward than the 6.1. So it was there so that
But I think
Nancy
you-
and Danny
yeah.
didn't see
Right,
just
but what I think you can
that we
do,
were
what I
serious
think you
about
can do
this.
is you can pull that off and combine it in with the other
Sure.
two columns.
Exactly.
And expand your messaging past just K through 12.
K-14.
K14 is the perfect. Don't go K20, turns people off. Go K14 is perfect though.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then you've got 2.9, you got 7 point whatever, and you got 5, so you're at you're at $14-15 million ask for STEM. And the question is does Don come in with his bill on top of that, or do you ask for 20? And all of a sudden, just so you know, you're asking for can we ask for the same amount of money the CTE people are asking for?
May I ask a question about the town council?
Yeah.
Would the investments come through employment?
The employment into the university system.
Okay, because I hear people talking about it a little differently sometimes, which was that talent the needs assessment and all would come through the talent council, but the investments would be made out of the STEM investment council. And this post-secondary development fund.
Yeah, that's the pre-amendment language. That was before OED came up and said, we want this thing, we want to own it, we want to baby it.
What the STEM Investment Council put forward was a sense of urgency around post-secondary talent development and recommended that the funding be there for that. It did not recommend the mechanism by which it would then be allocated.
Right, and does employment have a mechanism to make those investments?
Yes, they can use a number of different contracting folks to do that. It's not as clean as if it was within the same agency. If you're within HEC, then it's simple, right?
Right.
So there is some challenge there, but it's being worked through. And actually, again, one of the as much of a challenge as that is, I think the advantage of connecting one of the most important agencies around workforce to higher ed for the very first time. There is no formal connection between workforce and higher ed. They have no relationship. They don't, higher ed does not see themselves as workforce related, but workforce sees to get their job done, they have to have higher ed. So that's one of the big interests in tying them together for the first time. And
Does
then
the STEM Investment Council continue to consider the post-secondary and workforce-related
Yeah.
needs?
In fact, again, we're making sure that the STEM Investment Council by statute is represented on the OTC. We're bringing in HEC, STEM investment, workforce, and economic development onto that, plus the schools. So
Where's CTE?
what's that?
Is CTE in there at all?
No, because it's not defined. We're not defining it by STEM or CTE. We're defining it by
Industry
by
demand.
industry demand.
Okay.
The reason the STEM Investment Council is getting pulled in is because essentially we birthed it,
It's an
right?
existing body.
Existing body. And if 112 goes through, I would assume that the legislation would change to encompass the new body as well. But if you look at the talent council, some of the things that have come up now are very much fall in the traditional CTE bucket or silo, if you would, especially around healthcare, 2-year degrees or just not even degrees, just certificates or training around those things. And those things are all targeted really at high school and the first 2 years of community college, not necessarily in the 4-year institutions.
So how, I really want to get a lay of the land. How do we all work together on this? How do I support Mark? How do I support, I
can't stress this enough.
We need to strategically
to me.
know what our plan is.
Get Betty Comp in a room with you guys
Okay.
and talk about this, right?
Yeah, so just, I'm going to put this out here, is that we need to be thinking as a council very strategically as a state. I recognize the enormous need that exists in the field to fund specific programs and orphans and getting stuff out to actually get work done. We as a state continue to be program rich and systems poor. Part of the region for the middle hub, the middle tranche of funds, is also to take a look at, very strategically, we also have implementation of the Common Core, the next generation science standards, creating the mechanisms by which we elevate the system as a whole, and just putting forward more grant programs is not a sustainable change in the system as a whole. And so what we need to do is be very clear that what you're putting forward is great. It needs to fit and complement other things going on, and this is why we built in flexibility into the funding that we had put forward, because we wanted to be able to respond to what's happening over in this agency over here, what's happening in the HEC that isn't, the math didn't go forward, that didn't elevate. Oh, all of a sudden we have some flexibility. So that's part of what we built,
and I think that's
built
great,
into that.
but that's called STEM grants. I've seen it marketed as STEM grants, which means people are going to tie it to
I think the
very
point
targeted.
is, it just
people.
can't
But
be
they-
confused. You can't confuse the two. They complement each other, and yes, there's crossover, and it's whoever the end voice is gonna hear the story.
Well, the
Mark, I'm
grants
with
can
you
be
100%.
big
If you want
grants, or they
things
can
to
be tiny
change-
grants.
If you want things to change, you can't keep doing things the same way, and that's your point.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
So I
would-
But I recognize the wisdom in pulling out
But
some
you
of
don't wanna
this.
be confused because you don't wanna lose money.
Don't
either.
call
Exactly.
it STEM investment fund. It's, we need to characterize how we're going to say
Sure.
that middle money is going to be
Sure.
spent. And if it's going to be spent broadly, I agree. But
Yeah.
take the word grant out, because that's going to immediately tie back into what Don was talking about. How do you keep,
Well, some grants are by RFP, some grants are based by need, some grants can be, truly seen as an investment. We see something and invest in it.
trying to find,
So,
and the reason I have concern is because the document put out by Danny, office, the
which
two-pager.
one, yeah.
Yeah, take a look how I can't remember, I don't have it right there, I thought I did, how they're titling the buckets.
So if you'd like, we can change that bucket. So I titled those on the STEM
Yeah,
side.
go have a talk with, again,
But if we
what
need to have
legislator's gonna drive this thing through, because your office will not drive this through, the legislature.
Right.
You gotta have a legislator that does it.
Right.
Let's get together with Betty.
And Betty's just one, but I think you've got Betty's ear right now.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And she's
Okay.
well informed, so. All right, it's 2:30, got a half an hour.
All right.
Last item was advocacy plans, which we've been talking about the whole time.
I'm exhausted.
That's right.
Yeah. So,
Public comment.
what's that?
It's a public comment.
So we've mentioned some things already, right?
Yeah.
So
Action
I'm
items.
going to be running some stuff up the flagpole about perhaps a separate bill and what that might look like, coordinating with Betty Comp on some of the grants pieces. I would still love, Don, to see, and I think it would be much stronger if we tied aspects of that to the CTE programs of study and the ASOT, the Associate of Science,
ASOT.
Oregon ASOT CS, computer science.
Right. The
Yeah.
one that Marcia Fisher.
Right. So again, from a systems perspective, that would be a much stronger tie-in with all of the other things happening. But because I'm concerned that such a bill is easy to be seen as just
Double dips.
this is okay, some interesting stuff, but we want all day K. This is a luxury
Yeah.
rather than a need. And so the more we can tie it to a need within the system as a
You
whole.
guys have to have a legislative advisor, analyst, guru,
We have 5
playmaker. No, but there's.
Yes, we do.
There's somebody this is not first time through this
No.
maze.
No.
And again, do you hug the ground low and just get through the system, or do you need to elevate it for a conversation?
Yeah.
And once we know that, then Don knows what he needs to do on his end in regards to his piece. And
Yeah.
just so you know, again, Don, I'm very supportive of what you're doing. Mark, I'm very supportive of what the STEM Investment Council is doing. But if you don't come to agreement, neither one of you are going to be happy with the outcome, in my opinion, because people will horse trade you.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like kids working mom and dad.
Yeah, exactly. So unless you find that uber powerful Tina Kotek, I insist button, but I don't think we have anybody with that.
I don't think Tina has that for STEM.
No, absolutely not. I met with her for 30 minutes here last week, and no, not at all, unfortunately. She's sympathetic, she's interested, but I don't think it's a priority.
Luxury. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have to have a crescendo in the choir. It's all about
you guys hear me?
tune
Yeah, gotcha.
with the band.
Hey, great. I've been listening to the conversation, and what I wonder is how do we have the strategy and tactics conversation with the legislature in a way that we can not have to, what's the right word for it? In some cases, dumb it down, mix it up, in some case, obfuscate what we're really trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
I mean, because the work that Don talks about is really, really key. And let's be honest, in many cases, it's the work that will get some of the legislators' attention because they can actually see it tactically, they can see it on the ground happening in their areas.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, if the strategy stuff doesn't happen, then it makes Don's work so much harder to continue, right? So, it's almost, I really don't know how to have that conversation, and I'm wondering if there's some thinking in the room that can help me think about that, because I'll be honest, my tactic is obfuscation, right? I mean, literally, I listen for what they're interested in and try to spin it in a way that they'll actually hear it and take the appropriate action as opposed to really, what I'd like to say, tell the truth. It's like the strategy is like this. We really want our people to be, well educated, have great jobs, and we need an approach for that. Oh, by the way, we can't get everywhere all the time, and here's a place that we're starting right now with the tactics. So, can you support us now and into the future?
Well, I think
How does that?
you're right. I think
Go ahead.
there's a core group of legislators right now who are well aware of all the work that OPES did over the years and the robotics programs and everything else that are drinking that Kool-Aid. And I think there's a great big group of legislators who voted the STEM Investment Council into creation and are disappointed in the fact that we don't have any money to operate at a strategic level. But they also want the micro level. So there's the micro macro battle. Can we get money from both sides? That's why I think we need to figure out what is it we want from the macro level, call it what it is. Don't mix up any micro work within that macro work. Keep the micro work to a separate fund of money and then roll with it. I mean, one of the only advantages I personally see in 112 is the ability to get actually administrative money for this group because it's now wide open again, and we can ask for administrative funding for the CTE Investment Council, right? Where you can have staff, and you can have,
Well, it would be interesting to consider the implications of actually rolling the agency budgets into the STEM Investment Fund outside of an agency budget to be administered by agencies, but whose control rests with the STEM CTE
That's always been the play, right? It's who's got the money, really got the money, right? You need it here, even if it's just a little pause before it goes somewhere else, because without it, you've lost control of it.
I don't know whether that's the answer, but it certainly could address such a fund under the Treasury Department isn't subject, again, to the same.
Yeah.
It has definitely oversight with DAS, and we would report to the legislature, but it wouldn't be tied to an agency budget.
Yeah. All right. So immediate action items, Betty. And then you've got the other action items as previously talked about for STEM Day. Reaching out to Lindsay in regards to see if we can get a governor's proclamation, what's involved in doing that. And then if she says yes, then, or that office says yes, then what do we do with Courtney and Kotek in regards to the legislature?
Yeah.
Anything else?
And Senate Bill 112.
And Senate Bill 112, oh, that's an easy one, right? Yeah. I would encourage us, if 112, I don't think there's so much political pressure with 112 that if you don't like it, kill it. Say so. I don't think you're going to make anybody angry.
I think there's tremendous opportunity in it.
But if we run out of time,
it's just a headache. Let's be honest. Without being required.
I think we can make that conversation.
Mark is 100% correct. It is really complex. The STEM Investment Council heard Laura share all. The CTE goes clear back to Dewey. It goes back 100 years, and STEM there's Mark's right. It's really complex. I mean, I've lived in both worlds for 30 years, and it's hard for me to even sort it sometimes.
Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I don't necessarily believe that we have to put ourselves in a STEM CTE Investment Council in a position of having authority over what's going on within the CTE world.
I think
No, but to Mark's point, there doesn't need to be another council.
Right.
I mean, how many councils does there need to be? And that's the problem.
So maybe such a council only looks after the revitalization grants. It
Yeah.
doesn't look after federal dollars or the
Exactly.
spenders.
Yes.
But it does play a critical role in developing the statewide CTE and
Strategies.
Workforce Investment Act.
Yes.
Yes.
Strategic
Yes.
plan that includes STEM and
Yes.
CTE and workforce and the talent council. And that's a very
That's how you
appropriate.
disconnect the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the challenge with the CTE conversations, we've been from a STEM conversation, we've been looking at the strategy and not the micromanagement of a grant program. They've been micromanaging a grant program and haven't been looking at the strategy. So marrying these two, is appropriate.
Well,
I
and
think.
again, to all the testimony we've been doing is not being
It's the time.
duplicate efforts.
Yeah.
Right? Making sure that we have some coordination on things.
Yeah.
All right.
You got enough to do, Mark?
Never enough to do.
Never enough to do. All right, public comment portion of the afternoon's events. So Kyle
The
and,
public
and,
has been silent.
and Dawn
We're all
and Joe,
family
you
here.
guys have been not been able to participate up to this point. So now it's the opportunity for you to formally speak. Dawn, I see your name is on the list here. Do you have
Did he
anything
formally
further
speak?
you'd like to say?
Don is my proxy.
He's your proxy. There you go. Perfect.
Oh my gosh. I was just looking at the numbers on this thing this last week. And part of it's from Laura's presentation that she made to the STEM Investment Council. Part of it is the presentation that she made on when we were testifying on Denbro's bill. And 565,000 students. Part of the way I evaluated my program when I was teaching at the high school was if we had 1,400 or 1,450 students in the school, what percentage did I actually have involved in a meaningful way in engineering? One of the ways that I measured that was the number of kids that were put in like 50 to 100 hours in an after-school robotics, Oregon Game Programming Challenge, etc. type program. Another way I measured it was how many focused program completers we had in the engineering program. I knew that we had 7% of the kids in that high school on a football team. We had 7% of the kids in that high school on a soccer team, just in fall sports. And last year at graduation, over 6% of the graduating seniors earned an engineering-focused program of study. Until we can get those numbers, I think we've got to sit back and look at those numbers. You know, and I said earlier, I looked at ORTOP's numbers. We have 1.06% of the students in the state of Oregon in some kind of robotics thing at an average cost of, what, $60 per student or something like that. I mean, that's the whole point on why we went at. I can see the ROI on these after-school programs, on leveraging all those volunteers and allowing industry to fund specific things that we then leverage those dollars heavily, but especially getting those adults involved with the kids. When those kids have that interaction with the adults, when they showcase their project, when the adults celebrate them, as we all did at the robotics tournament on Sunday at Benson. If we want these kids to actually think that this society values STEM CTE, and the constant message to a 10-year-old is, you know, what athletic team are you on? That's not a bad thing. I mean, I want them on athletics teams. That's good. But we're never going to get close to 40-40-20 on the bottom 40-20. We're never going to get close on this graduation rate and stuff when we can't really value that bottom 60% with these kinds of things where adults, I mean, is 10% of the kids, that would be 56,000 approximately kids. Is that our goal? That we have 50, is our goal that 10% of the kids do at least 100 hours of something where adults celebrate them and value what they're doing? That's my question, is where's our goal from a state perspective, strategically? I haven't pulled the statistics on OSAA, Oregon School Activities and Athletics Association. What percentage of the kids get what level of experience there? We know we're creating great athletes. I think we can create great STEM people.
What the other committee?
Thank you.
I'm drinking. I'm drink the Kool-Aid. But the committee that you probably need to be talking to and also pitching to is the
Jim Pyro.
yeah. Well, what's the
That guy.
no data metric? Well, there's that
Strategic planning.
strategic plan, because that is fundamental question number one.
Okay,
Thompson.
and that's Thompson.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I would encourage you
Thompson.
to bring this conversation to Thompson's committee, because that is one of the main things that they're working on right now, right? And then when they've figured that out, talk to the entire council as a general. It'll be our job to put it forward.
Right, but advocacy, if we can't get these kids to believe that this is really important, your girls aren't going to sign up for Jill's robotics class.
Understood.
You know what I mean? Or be on our team. And if we can't save our own kids, those of us that are in this thing.
Hence,
Sorry.
sorry for a statewide media campaign.
There you go.
So,
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. Any other comments, Joe? Or no? Kyle, you good?
I'm good.
One question for just public record. When is the next CT STEM investment employers council meeting?
Well,
Employers investment council group thing.
Communication.
so, the legislative piece of it, we meet every Thursday
Yeah.
in the Capitol, Mark. So I was thinking
Oh, really?
that may be an opportunity for you
Every Thursday.
and Lindsay
Didn't know that.
to come. And we talked about things. So that's the group that are ready and armed and
Yep.
basically saying, what should I talk about and where is it going? So there's an
Send us an
opportunity there. Every Thursday they meet. We haven't scheduled the bigger group. So
Okay.
it sounds like it might be time.
Well, you know what's going to happen after April 12th, 10th, right? Because again, everything here, inaction at this time is action, because at April 10th, nothing goes forward, right? Anything that's still in committee on April 11th, dead.
Does it really need to be a meeting, or can it just be like an update from Jill and Jim?
Like a phone
An
call
email?
or something.
Or a phone call.
It depends. The phone call would need to,
I think,
organize
If there's an
action.
action.
If it's
The-
an update, it can just,
is Beth Cook participating in that Thursday
I think
gathering?
she is.
Okay, so one of the
I usually do.
concerns I'll say from my perspective, and we mentioned it briefly in this conversation, is that the CTE folks have a much more defined ask and body. They also have many more legislative lobbyists that are fully engaged and are pushing their agenda. They are carrying STEM with it, but it's like anything. If you got to carry your kid and someone else's kid, and it gets heavy, which one gets dropped first, right? We need more.
The heaviest one.
Exactly.
How many kids do you have? Right. Sorry.
So the fact of the matter is, we need to make sure we have better representation on the STEM side at those Thursday meetings. So
Yeah.
we should make sure Craven is being invited, because he's always kind of represented the STEM side very, very well.
I don't think Jim shows up.
Now, Jim's doing most of it from home on computer these days. So,
Right.
but
Joel's there.
Joel and Beth are great.
Yeah,
that's
Joel, Beth,
Joel
Bessie.
fight. Yeah,
From AOI, those are all
I just
heavy
want
STEM folks.
and
But
the-
they'll also
yep.
look to us.
exactly. We're probably not giving them enough defined things to
Right.
walk in and pound on, other than 27, 28 at this time. And that's why I think we've got to figure out how to get these.
So that
things.
might be a good play, particularly for the hubs. I don't know about the other, more fluid funds right now, unless we do a major play to sweep them and put them in.
So
a-
my
a
concern
separate
with the
fund.
hubs, that goes to OED, right?
ODE,
Or
right?
ODE.
No, right now that's coming through the agency budget with the STEM Investment Council to oversee those investments. So that's part of the.
We can get these
OED
things
budget.
started. How are we going to keep them alive? What's going to cost to keep them alive long term? So if it's $5 million to get them going and keep them alive for this next biennium, and we get our 12 and we're done, then is it 2 million? Is it $1 million? Is it 4 million ongoing in regards to maintaining them? And I think you got to keep them on a thin budget, or they'll just bloat.
Right. Well, this is where the backbone function of coordination versus the programmatic aspects, and we're considering separating those out in this biennium so that people recognize that the state's role is to fund, this backbone and coordination piece, and some of the activities that are aligned with the state's overarching goal. So. But then that they would have to find other funds.
There's a nice bright line between those two activities, though. So
Yeah.
going to the legislature and saying, I want $4 or $5 million so I can start up 6 more hubs, make sure this entire state's covered,
Yep.
pull everybody together, get everybody going.
And we want funding to
I'm
support
not
that
saying
work.
stop. And next bill, next budget, next ask is to support those things long-term through this functionary, be it ODE or whatever. And it's going to be to the tune of, $1.5 million, a biennium, $2 million, whatever the case may be. I just think if you lump them together, people get real suspicious, because that $5 million becomes base operating budget as opposed to.
So now I'm hearing you say that the sustainability piece put in the agency budget,
Yes. And get the,
that's where they are right now. But I was
I-
just hearing that
is that,
to pull them out of the
no,
agency
no, no,
budgets.
no, agents, no, so.
Confused.
So there is sustaining money for the hubs within ODE for long-term.
Within the OEIB's budget, there is a line item,
Okay.
and that's an agency, so it would, the expectation would be that that would roll over in our agency budget for long-term sustainability
That's not
of
the
the
$5
hubs.
million.
That is the $5 million.
Okay, but the $5 million, you're telling me right now that the $5 million is going to be used to create 6 new hubs.
And support.
And support, but
So this last
Okay, so
round, we
create-
pushed out.
No,
two-
just listen to me. I'm just going to be a legislator to you here. So you're telling me you want $5 million to create 6 new hubs and to maintain. So you do that, we create the 6 new hubs, and now you're going to get, the next biennium, you're going to get $5 million just to maintain. But it costs more to start than it does to maintain. So you're asking for an
Not
increase.
really.
Oh my God, dude, you're going to get destroyed. You got to be really careful about that. I mean, the sustaining money should always be significantly less than the startup money. I mean, just be really careful, because what you're doing is you're rolling a startup into a sustain, and that is what got ETIC in trouble. It gets all sorts of people in trouble. You got to figure out how to find sustaining dollars.
Right, and behind what he's saying is the fact that there are going to be people that are going to be doing the math, and they're going to see an ever-increasing
Staff.
check
Yep.
that needs to be written, and they don't like that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sustaining needs to be hidden in these big budgets that just grind, that just, right? And not be, and that's not startup money. You're asking for startup money for 6 more hubs. If nothing else, separate it out. We need $5 million for hubs, $3 million to start up 6 new hubs, and help engage the existing hubs to get to a certain level. And then there's $2 million for, I don't know.
okay.
And I'm not the end all on this by any stretch of imagination, but I can tell you where I've been beaten up senseless on this stuff, and sustaining budgets is a huge piece of this. It's easy to get startup money. It's hard to get sustaining money.
That's why keeping the hubs in this agency budget seems like a good idea.
Yeah. But you want me to ask the real big question, what's the status of OEIB? Because I've heard a renewed since when Pittsburgh left, then all of a sudden the chant got louder.
No, the
are we in Q&A of our meeting now?
Yeah, we're done.
We're
Yeah, sorry,
out.
we're adjourned.